Consciousness is much easier to be described because it's so close to language, to the mind, to thinking. To the imagination, to pictures. Images we see in our heads. So in a way, it's not like we close off consciousness and we talk about awareness, it's always a blend. But our focus now is towards opening the window of pure awareness. Yesterday it became clear a little bit between the lines that the backdrop to consciousness is peace. In the same way that behind the very possibility of time, or even timelessness, we must have eternity. Otherwise time would have no meaning. There's nothing to cut up. So peace is very much the backdrop to consciousness. And we're used in our present world to look at peace as the opposite of war, which when we take that inside would be the opposite of busy mind, competing conversations, arguments inside the head. But when you really inquire into that, you see that peace actually is always there, even when there's a fight or thinking happening. Like the silence, the peace is always there. The opposite of war is actually surrender. Stop fighting. And then the peace becomes more clear, but it was also there during the conflict. So in a sense, we don't make peace. We remove the conditions we put on peace and let the peace be. In the same way that we don't make silence. We just quieten the noise and let the silence be clear. So in a way, many of the thinking, busy mind thinking things of consciousness has the agenda to bring back peace. In a way, the secret agenda of every war is peace. Even when it takes on an evil, destructive form of killing another, it's for peace. It's crazy, but it brings peace. So when we can allow the peace during a conflict, in a way we're satisfying the agenda of the conflict, which allows it to quieten. From the generation of the 60s, we're used to talking about peace and love. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. Peace and love are not the same at all. When we begin inquiring with our feeling awareness into how peace feels, how love feels, they're quite different. Just as consciousness and awareness is quite a different dimension, peace and love are quite different. They're married. One tends to follow the other. Love reaches out. It's moving. With warmth. And when love reunites another, by enclosing it with love, there tends to come peace. The coolness. It's done. It's okay. Where there is a great atmosphere of peace, the love is more able to move, to flow. So, it seems the universal backdrop to awareness is love. And it's not love which is in any way restricted or given out in portions of rations of love. It's infinite in its source. It's endless. We are the ones that need, for whatever reason, to close down or slow down the flow of love, or to shelter from it. Because in this love we can fear that we will disappear. Well, love is never a word, it's never an idea. Even Einstein said there's no scientific explanation for love. It can only be felt. And trusted. The trust is important because in allowing to feel ourselves to feel love and to feel the feeling of the feeling, to surrender to love, we need to trust the natural forms of who we are, that they will hold, that we won't just disappear or lose our minds, or that the form will come forward of itself. It won't explode our hearts any more than is needed at any moment. Sometimes it's needed a little bit to have a heart explosion. So perception through awareness is very much carrying with it love. Of course, loving awareness can only really be free and expand in space, or from a place behind even that. Otherwise it would have no space to expand. So the greatest allowance of love is in a way even behind love itself. Or it could be it's a dimension of such a fine love that it's not felt. What's clear is that the feeling we experience of love is the feeling of our own opening. It's the feeling of expansion. It's not the love itself. The love itself is not graspable. So love naturally, unlike consciousness, loving awareness moves us beyond the subject and the object, beyond the otherness, into the and. We can fall in love with somebody, but in that great opening of the heart, the love is pervading everything. It's pervading the flowers, the trees, the dog, the kettle. In its purity, it moves through. It doesn't stop at the object of the other, it moves through the other. In the same way, awareness, which is how it feels to be, moves through all that is there. So if awareness in its purity meets suffering, it also suffers. But it's not caught there. In itself, it's not caught in suffering. It doesn't exclude. But it does get frozen. Sometimes when what is happening in our living is so painful to be able to contain, we freeze the awareness. In a way, we freeze the love. For example, in a grief process, when there's been a death or a loss, there's a confrontation with something impossible from the level of awareness. From the level of awareness, loss is not possible. At the same time that on the level of the mind, it's happened. And the mind is desperately trying to adjust to the person no longer being alive, which is basically adjusting or trying to contain the fact that we also will die, that we're mortal, that it could happen at any moment. So at the same time as that, there's a physical unsafety happening. And this creates a shock, which means, and this is just one example of pain, that the awareness, the loving awareness, freezes in what we know as grief. A grief process. The liberation of this awareness has its own time, a sentient time. It's different from any textbook. It takes 4 months to get over a loss or whatever. It has its own time, and it will wait, if necessary, 30 years or a lifetime or generations until it's done. This is the logic of this time. Now, if it is a freezing of the loving awareness, then that means, in the same way as with the peace and with the thoughts, that it's actually composed of particles of frozen love. The block on this level, frozen awareness. So it sounds paradoxical to think a place where we're numbed or in extreme pain is made of love. But it totally makes sense. Because if we didn't so much love the one that we lost, there would be no grief. There would be no shock. So in blocks in awareness, the medicine to frozen love, is loving awareness. When we move, what we tend to do, where there's a deep pain, and we just gave one example of grief, but it can be the pain of rejection, or pain around abandonment, or loneliness. What we tend to do is, because the consciousness moves very, very fast, it wants a quick fix. So it tries to avoid, fix it with the head. Let's bring peace, like this, with the thinking. And the consciousness or the mind, the mental patterns needs to be taught, and even the ego, which tries to hold everything together, to keep a form, needs to be reassured that it's worthwhile to bring loving awareness to the frozen love, to the pain. That this will do more to keep the person in form and to keep the person in shape than the escape route through consciousness. So when we have a depressed area of ourselves where awareness is constricted, allowing the loving awareness to be there also brings a kind of heat which initiates a defrosting. It begins to thaw like water, and a flow begins again. Get some clouds. In the circulation, all of this vital energy is brought back into the perceptive system. It also means that we can experience an expansion of awareness rather than going between the icebergs to get to Eden. It's much more normalized in a way. So we're moving into an area of processing through feeling and feeling the feeling. Being aware of what is aware, of what is aware. Letting ourselves be that. In a way, consciousness surrenders. It doesn't go anywhere, it's always there for us, but it surrenders the wheel of the bus. It begins to follow what's happening. In a way, it records, but it's passively following and diminishes so that awareness can fully open.
When we look at awareness, then basically we look at also the sense of touch. This is where it starts, just a simple sense of touch. And it deepens itself into our ability to feel things, which is basically the second layer. And often the first things we are feeling is either love or non-love. And on this level, what Georgi brought forward, when there's an interference from the consciousness, from the mind, we kind of put a structure around love, conditions. Partly based on the fear of getting hurt or rejected. So we try to protect what's so precious. by putting borders. When we move more deeply inside ourselves, then feeling kind of changes into something which is more free as a feeling. It's experiencing. Feeling is very much connected with the I. I feel joy. I feel happiness. When you say I experience joy, there is already, more a distance. I feel joy is almost I am joy. I am love. I am sadness. I am sad, we say. It's totally different if you say I experience grief. There is much more space. When we move more deeply inside ourselves, then the experience gets even more space. And the experience getting more space is moving into non-duality. And this non-duality, what I mean with it, is that the heart anyhow, in its depth, what Georgi brought forward, has this and this is possible and that is possible. But moving more deeply, to move into non-duality, is that the experience in itself is free. It's a whole. It's positive, negative, it's all together. It's not you. And the danger which is there, especially in opening the heart in the whole process of inner growth, is that we move into an experience, or into experience, and we start to identify with the experience. I am enlightened. I am joy. I am love. So moving beyond this identification, moving into a spaciousness inside yourself where the experience can exist as itself, we move back into the observer, which is so much connected with awareness, into pure awareness. And pure awareness is nothing else as the ability to experience, the miracle that we're able to experience. And the beautiful thing of this is that, different as the consciousness, the witness who's witnessing based on the mind kind of brings everything into polarity. It's the most physical part of ourselves in that sense. The heart is moving beyond polarity. It's absolutely, the awareness is unconditional according the observer any experience. It's the miracle that we can experience which is appreciated. There's an incredible freedom in this. That means if there's suffering and pain, if there is an unconditional opening to experiences, then what you see in the suffering and pain, that at the same time you experience that this brings forward clarity. That there is a bliss in the depth of the experience you're moving to. That there is a liberation. It's part of a whole process. So moving beyond the experience into what I think is the pure observer, then what's happening is the whole experience of love is changing. There is no private love. There is no private soul. There is no private being. Love is something which is moving through us. It's partly of what the universe is composed of. And we can open ourselves towards it, or we can kind of, shut it off. Love is something which is moving forward when two creatures are meeting each other, and is created when there is an openness. In what Georgi brought forward, we're so deeply composed of love that we hardly are able to feel our own love. It's so natural to us. It's so much what we are made of. What we meet is the reflection of our love backwards, outwards. If you see what you deeply love in another person, it's the love of the other person. And our deep love for the love of the other person is reflecting back the love of the other person. You recognize what I'm talking about? And still, in giving form to what we are composed of love, we kind of give it our own taste. Everybody's love, the love of a tree, of a cat, of a stone, of a flower, is unique. And at the same time, it's not the love of the flower. It's just the flower giving form in its own way to love. That means that you're not able to possess love. You cannot hold on to it. You cannot kind of, direct it in the way you want it. The moment we try to treat love like this, there is a shutdown of awareness. And slowly in this shutdown of awareness, there's less experience. We kind of remove us from the experience, from the love which is always there. We move away. We lose connection. The more conditions we put, the less we are able to experience love. The more we are focused on what hurts or what could hurt or what we think is unbearable, the more we are experiencing exactly that, because this is what we're focused on. It's not true to say that what you fear is what you create. It's more true to say what you fear is where you're focused on. And this, your experience, your awareness will move into that direction. So when you look to these areas of frozen love, or blocks in the whole area of sentience, when you meet these blocks with compassion or empathy, in a loving way, in yourself or in another, then healing takes place. It opens up. And there is a deep, deep, deep sadness in a person, which is kind of a little bit put away, a little bit blocked. And you reach out in an open, loving, unconditional way. The sadness will kind of come forward almost by itself. And it means that this part which has been frozen comes back into circulation, it opens again. It can be lived. And this is not only for blocks around the heart area, it's general for blocks. Whatever is blocked means that there is an experience we're not able to kind of live, move through fully. Where the mind can witness this and say, okay, this is exactly what it is in words. The awareness, the consciousness is able to move through the full experience. To allow us to experience it to the depth. And this brings forward where any experience is coming from. It's a form. And it's coming from a source, and it'll kind of move back into the source again. The whole circulation. So to be able to live in a way that you kind of move through the experience and move back to the source, to finish experiences, brings you very deeply into being.
Could you give an example?
So there is pain. The moment we say, okay, not now, there's a tendency to move into the mind. Mm-hmm. And the mind will kind of find a way to communicate over the pain. But the feeling connection with the other person, the togetherness with the other person is partly lost. It could be that if you move like this, that your partner says, hey, where are you? What's going on? Are you feeling okay? Because the partner feels that the whole interplay of love is lost at that moment. Something is closed down. We're not even so much ourselves aware of this or conscious of this because we think we do the right thing. I can start about this pain again, and it gets too much. It gets too much for her, or it gets too much for him. So let's kind of, find another opening. Do it in another way. But something closes down. And we very much used to do this. Kind of find other ways. Partly because the whole sentience, the whole area of feeling, of experiencing, is very, very, very vulnerable. And in this, we sometimes don't come to finishing a feeling, to let it exist. So to finish a feeling is kind of saying, ow, cry, feel the pain, the sadness, whatever is there, And sometimes over a longer period, some things we have to solve in little steps. When there is a deep shock of the heart, a loss, or a deep rejection. So, if we move to the full circle, there is a liberation. So in the grief process, if you move to the full circle of loss, and the pain of loss, the anger, the disbelief, the shock, everything through each other and in a certain rhythm, we come back to the ability to open up again totally to togetherness, where the opening up to togetherness before that was lost. I cannot open myself up in the same way to togetherness as I was able to do before. There's more a distance. And this is also very much connected with awareness and with the observer. If there is a free experience, then togetherness, a deep togetherness is possible. An interbeing, an awareness of the interbeing, which is between all of us. We all are here together as one world. We are together with the animals, we are together with the trees, we are together with the fish, we are together with the stones, with the air. We are together. There is an interbeing. When there is damage in the whole area of awareness, this togetherness gets lost. It's me and the world, and this is where ego structure starts. It's the world against me or me against the world. It's either or. This is where the mind comes in with its polarity. So the end is also connected with interbeing, is connected with togetherness. We all have our own form, but our being is together, is shared at this moment here.
So there are a few tricks or tools or aids to help move into an increasing opening of the window of awareness. One is probably known to you from The Little Prince, to see with the eyes of the heart, to hear with the ears of the heart. So in a way, for this we kind of can chop off our heads. Imagine it's not there. No head. Really replace in our, as an experiment, our hearing and listening and seeing on the level of feeling, on the level of the heart. Really put our heads in our hearts. A second tool which could be useful is to play a little bit with rejection. We play because actually there's no such thing as rejection. Selection. You know, consciousness is very much connected with light and with seeing. We know light as light because that's what we see with our eyes. But light is actually a vibration. So when you take the light, what we know as light, visual light or light inside our imagination or eternal souls from consciousness, and we just allow that same light to also move through awareness, feeling what light feels like, cutting out the visual, we blind ourselves, opening the feeling of light. In a way, deselecting the visual aspect of it, because we tend to move in exercises, we put light, so we visualize light. So we don't visualize it, we feel light. We invite the experience of light, but the experience without the visual, the feeling of it, the vibration of light. Then we get an impression of the difference of the two dimensions. And of course, the light is the source of the camera. It's the projector. So if you imagine a person comes forward and you see the person, the image, the movie of a person. When we're moving with awareness, it's worthwhile to scrap the picture. Go with the feeling that birthed the image, the atmosphere. How does it feel? So I can feel that person's connecting. I get a picture on my screen of my imagination, but I don't want the picture. I want to know the feeling which is behind it, the feeling which is connecting. This is awareness. The last technique is very much to do with the principle of allowance and softness. So you can't kind of push awareness. The only thing we can really push is, or make an effort with, is to get out of the way of ourselves. We can push ourselves gently out the way, and then allow it to spread. This feeling, loving awareness, allow it to spread. So the effort is almost in non-effort. The restrictions on awareness are often connected with stress. And stress is a holding. It's a kind of effort. We hold ourselves in a stress, and in this we restrain, we keep closed more or less the window of awareness. Sometimes. A little bit of effort to allow the stress to get out the way, or even to not take this more vulgar vibration of stress that serious. Just ignore. To allow the pure awareness through is worthwhile. So it's an effort to move into acceptance. A little effort for a big allowance. It's very receptive. So fear comes up, so you don't act on it. You allow it to be there, let it be, but it's not the point. Or pain, or whatever. It's like parting the trees in a forest in our stuff, which is in awareness. And there's a key word which is softness. You know, when we move with our perception towards ourselves, towards something inside ourselves, there's two sides to the story. There's that aspect of ourselves which we're moving towards, which is in pain, you know, in pain. And there's us moving towards it with our attention. Now, if you move with the attitude of a punishing school teacher towards this, because this has been our habit, so our awareness is carrying with it some kind of attitude, like guilt, you're wrong, accusation. Subtly, but with our awareness, if we move towards our blocks with a kind of stupid cow, it's going to freeze more. And awareness will give itself very naturally. In its natural form, it's very, very soft. It can penetrate like water. And we can be soft towards if it was another person in pain, we would be soft, but towards ourselves we can be quite brutal with our perception. So the movement of softness is quite important and quite liberating. Softness, gentleness, slowness. With awareness, it's often enough just to be there. Whatever it is, to let it be. And in letting it be, we're not rejecting something. So just in allowing our awareness to be surrounding something which hurts is often enough. It comes to life, it starts to transform.
It releases like nothing. Then we cannot believe how easy it is to release.